All right, if we could have a discussion about what is evangelism, we might bring in a number of different factors into evangelism. I wonder if all boiled down after we talk about invitation is in evangelism, and discipleship is in evangelism, and cultural understanding is in evangelism. I wonder if all boiled down, we could realize there's two main elements in evangelism. There's a core gospel message, and there's understandability. Core gospel message and understandability. I think we see that in Paul the Apostle's life and ministry. I think we see that in his writings. Colossians 4:2-6 talks about, hey, pray that I would make that gospel understandable, that I'd make it manifest, that I'd make it clear as I ought to speak. He realized, hey, I've got a part to play in this, and this is what I ought to do. Colossians 4:2-6. What is evangelism, though? A core gospel message and understandability. So we've been talking about how to make that gospel message understandable in a world that constantly misunderstands the truth, misunderstands that biblical message. I remember talking to my cousin a couple years ago and telling her, just kind of getting some stuff off my shoulders and trying to build connection with her a little bit, and saying stuff about, sometimes I see how I treat my kids, and just how it shows how evil I am deep down inside. And even though you don't know me all that well, you might be able to say, well, yeah, Chris, you're a sinner at heart. You're redeemed, but you're still a sinner. And so, of course, that sin nature is going to come out in how you treat everyone around you, and certainly your kids. You would agree with me. However, my cousin didn't. She said, oh, no, Chris, you're not that bad. You're a good person. And that came from the mindset of people are good deep down inside. I don't think that's a biblical idea. I don't think that's an experiential idea. I think experience and in history would show us, hey, people are not really good deep down inside. But there was a fundamental distinction between what I saw as people's core heart issue and what she saw. There's misunderstanding. And as I try to share the gospel with somebody like that, well, there's going to be a misunderstanding of the gospel as well, because there's no need in a system like that if people are deep down inside good already. So there needs to be understandability of the gospel message. We talked about that last session. We talked about those three roommates. Where did Mrs. Jones go when she died? And those three discussions. Those three guys representing three different perspectives on life and death and the afterlife. And all of that was worldviews coming into collision, worldviews coming into conflict, and it's going to cause gospel message, truth, to be misunderstood. And so today, as we talk about the core gospel message and understandability of that core gospel message, we need to talk about how truth is misunderstood, how and why truth is misunderstood. Really, those three approaches historically to apologetics, that classical, evidential, and the presuppositional, line up with different stages of history and different flows of thought, major, dominating ideas in the thinking of the West. Nowadays, we are at a point where we're reinterpreting the evidence almost at will. The evidence doesn't speak for itself. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, well, there's always going to be a lot of doubt when I present my evidence to somebody else. Certainly God is there. I want to trust that God is working. But I also need to realize, well, he's given me something to do. I love Paul in Colossians 4:2-6 again. He said, hey, I have a part to play in this. I need to make this stuff manifest. I need to step through those open doors. And so Colossians, pray that I'd have open doors. So presuppositional apologetics, presuppositional evangelism is worldview exposure. We're going to talk about what a worldview is today. Stuff is being misinterpreted, reinterpreted, and so we're needing to talk not just about words and evidence and assuming things will speak for themselves, but we really need to teach people how to interpret different things. So, first thing I want to talk about is those 3D glasses. You know how those work? I think those are amazing. I think they're brilliant. But one side of the 3D glasses is a blue lens. One side is a red colored lens. And the filmmakers or whatever make their film with two different patterns of the the plane or the boat or the whatever it is, and one pattern is in blue, and so this blue lens over here can't see that blue pattern, and so the blue lens tells this eye that the picture you're looking at is actually over here, and the other pattern in the video whatever is in red, and so this eye that can't see red says, well, this isn't the item is over here. So one eye is telling it's over here and it's over here, and you get a 3D effect. I think it's pretty brilliant how they do that. We talk about people wearing rose-colored glasses. The fact that they can't see any bad in life, that everything is good because of their glasses. I think it's a very effective way of describing man's perspective on the world around them. Having this idea of glasses. Certain worldviews, like glasses, filter out certain things. Certain worldviews, like glasses, filter out certain things. I can't see God type of things because I've got glasses on that tells me there's no God. I can't see a soul because I've got glasses on that tells me there's no soul. I can't see that a baby is a precious gift from God and is a human being worthy of protection because my glasses say there's no God to give a gift. That baby's not a gift. That baby's a parasite, whatever it might be. Events are happening to me all the time, and I'm interpreting those through my presuppositions, through that set of glasses that I'm wearing at various times, and having to make sense of my world based on these glasses, this interpretive grid work that I use and that I deal with anytime I look at anything. So we're talking about how and why evidence gets reinterpreted, and it really goes back to this idea of grid work and glasses right here. So I've got some definitions for what a worldview is. The Baker Encyclopedia of Christian Apologetics, Norman Geisler, I've quoted a number of times in this course. He says a worldview is how one views or interprets reality. Dr. John Lennox says that a worldview is our set of answers to the questions the world thrusts upon us. I'm going to come back to that in a couple minutes here. But our set of answers to the questions the world thrusts upon us. I love that one. Because it says that, hey, things are happening to us all the time and causing us we have to answer this question. And what's our answer going to be? And oftentimes we don't go to a book, chapter and verse in the book of Ephesians or the book of Psalms or anything like that. We just kind of pull things out of thin air and we presuppose. We have presuppositions. And that causes us to form our glasses in the way we look at things. George Walker has become one of the gurus of worldview studies in our mission, Ethnos 360. And he was in Papua New Guinea for a number of years, and he says this about worldview. He says, a worldview is an emotionally held core assumptions about the nature of reality. And I love that too. He says emotionally held. They're not logical all the time. They're not consistent all the time. There are things that, well, I just want this to be the truth. I want this to be the case. And so I hold these things emotionally. However, for the purpose of this course, we're going to look at James Sire. He wrote The Universe Next Door, an old book, but really a comprehensive one, really a full one. And he describes a worldview as a set of presuppositions, which are assumptions which may be true, partially true, or entirely false. A set of presuppositions which we hold, whether consciously or subconsciously, whether consistently or inconsistently. So a set of presuppositions which we hold about the basic makeup of our world. Worldview is a set of presuppositions which we hold about the basic makeup of our world. I've got Dr. John Lennox's definition on there also. Our set of answers to the questions the world thrusts upon us. As we go to answer those questions, we come up with a bunch of presuppositions. Sometimes we're holding those presuppositions in this area. Sometimes we're abandoning those and adopting other ones, and we're not being very consistent, according to what James Sire says. For purposes of class, how worldview is how you explain your world. And you as a Christian have a different worldview than an atheist, than a Hindu, than a Muslim, than any number of other people do. I gave a number of examples already, whether even without describing what those examples were. I described the Mauk tribal couple, and they had a set of glasses that told them those twins were not a gift from the Lord. Those twins were, well, one or both of them were a demon trying to get into the world, so we need to kill one or both of them. that Hoti couple, their glasses, that Hoti mom realized that that baby was as good as dead anyway, and that baby's going to call to me from beyond the grave if I comfort it and help it, so I'm not going to do that. And it all goes back to this idea of the glasses. Years ago, there was a very famous show, Friends, that really was pervasive in our society. A friend of mine told me about one episode where Ross, the paleontologist, the dinosaur scientist, was having a conflict with Phoebe, the New Ager. And, those are opposite ends of the spectrum of worldview. Phoebe apparently walking down the street and saw a cat. Now, I don't know what the cat did, looked at her a certain sort of way or something like that, and Phoebe realized, oh my goodness, that's my mom reincarnated as a cat. And sets up the premise for the show. She goes back and tells her friends, and Ross, the paleontologist, says, that doesn't happen. There's no soul. There's no such thing as reincarnation. Your mom's not going to come back as a cat. What kind of look did she give you? Whatever it was. And so there's this half-hour show of just conflict. They couldn't get any kind of resolution because they were looking at things through their own lenses. And finally, at the end of the show, Phoebe said, I know you don't agree with me, but can't you just accept my belief because we're friends? Everything ended well. And that's really, I think, a microcosm of our world, because whether it's a household of 6 people or a planet of 8 billion, our hope is that we can just accept each other because we're friends or because we want to be friends. Let's just accept what everyone believes because we just want to be friends. We want to be loving towards other people, and we want to accept what anyone believes as being valid. That's good for you. I don't believe that, but that's good for you. That's essentially what Phoebe and Ross were talking about, and that's what they're hoping for our planet as well. So some basic terminologies that are maybe synonymous terms in many ways with the idea of the worldview. Paradigm, mindset is another one. Culture, grid work, matrix, you've heard that. Perspective. Those are all synonymous in many ways with the idea of worldview. Everyone has a worldview. Everyone has a set of glasses. They might not know it. They might be inconsistent with it. It might be very subconscious, but everyone has a set of glasses. Everyone has a certain way that they look at the world around them. And presuppositional evangelism, presuppositional apologetics is going to be, hey, I want to find out what glasses you're wearing to show you how your lens is blue. You can't see blue things out there. And that blue lens is a bad lens. It doesn't really work. It doesn't look at reality like it really is. But I want to go back to what Dr. John Lennox said about worldview. He said, worldview is our set of answers to the questions the world thrusts upon us. And if we were together, I would ask you, okay, what kind of questions does the world thrust upon us? What kind of things do we have to deal with? We have to have answers for. And might be hard for you to think of some of those things. But as you got rolling, you realize, oh yeah, I've got to answer those questions. Questions like, what happened to Grandma when she died? What should I be doing with my life so that I have a life that looks good like Grandma's did at the end of my life? What's going to bring me the most fulfillment, the most happiness in my life? Is there some kind of a God out there? What does he or she or it or they, what do they want from me? Those are kind of the questions we have to face as human beings. And whether you're in the United States, whether you're in the deepest, darkest jungles of Papua New Guinea, you've got to answer some of those questions. And your presuppositions, the glasses that you choose to wear or that are put upon you by your parents, your culture, other things that happen to you, that's going to shape how you view this world around us. So if we could put all those questions, if we could spend 20 minutes describing all the different possible questions the world thrusts upon us, we could put them in a big funnel and shake those things out, I think we'd come up with about 4 different categories. I've got these on the board here now. 4 different categories. What is reality? What is man? What is right and wrong? And then what is mankind's purpose? So reality, man, values, and purpose. Reality, man, values, and purpose. Other authors, other scholars will use more categories. I think James Sire in his book uses 7. I've combined a couple of them because they seem like they overlap a little bit. So I'm using 4 different basic categories. What is reality? What is man? What is right and wrong? And what is mankind's purpose? Each of those has some subcategories under that. So I want to examine that a little bit more now. So we're looking at reality first. 4 subcomponents under reality. That first one is, what is really real? That sounds like a philosopher question or a question for druggies late at night or something. What is really real? But everyone has to deal with this. What is the nature of prime reality? When you peel away all the coverings, what is at the basis of everything? Is everything a spiritual force? Is everything a physical force? Is there some combination between the physical and the spiritual? I would imagine that we Christians would say there's some combination between the physical and the spiritual. We have an immaterial soul, but we also have a very physical body, and we have a physical planet, and God is immaterial. So we'd say, what is prime reality? We'd say it's some combination of both. Other worldviews are going to look at that question very differently. But what is really real? The next one is origins. Where did all this come from? Did God speak this into existence? Did it come from an explosion, a big bang of somehow pre-existing stuff? Where did it all come from? That's a question that worldviews have to deal with. The next one is, what about God? What about God? Is there a God? Is there many gods? What does he, she, it want from us? And I wonder if right there is the distinction between worldview and religion. I don't think they're the same. I don't think they're synonymous. I think maybe religion is how you work your worldview out. And it's going to be very much narrower than a worldview. We'll talk about that in a couple of sessions here. But what does God, quote unquote, want from me? And that's going to be determining maybe my religion. I've been thinking about that for years. But after what is really real, after origins, after God, we also need to ask the question of, how do I know? That's such a huge question. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a couple sessions. But how do I know? How do I know that man has a soul? How do I know that man is not just physical? How do I know that there's a God out there? Or how do I know that there's not a God out there? How do I know whatever it is that I know? So that's another part of this whole idea of reality. What's really real? Origins, God, and then how do I know? We'll talk about that a lot more later. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Matrix. It came out in 1999. I wouldn't suggest you see it, but it's a very interesting philosophical treatment. It's very action-packed, very flashy, very stylish. But the Wachowski brothers, the directors of that movie, brought the biggest question in philosophy into the theaters. They brought this idea of what is real and how do I know? That's one philosophers have been wrestling with for thousands of years. And they made this question into a cultural force that people are still thinking, many, many years later, hey, maybe we're living just in a computer simulation. They did that. People are thinking that because of the stylishness of those movies. And then those other following 2 movies ask some of these other philosophical questions as well. But in The Matrix, the hero of The Matrix, the Neo, he has to deal with, okay, how do I know what is really real out there? And he takes a blue pill or a red pill, and is he going to find what the nature of reality, or is he going to be able to just forget about the nature of reality, wake up in his bed, go about his plain old day? But he's having to make decisions based on that all the time. And we are too. We have to make decisions based on what we know or maybe don't know to be really real. And it's a big philosophical question, but that's, okay, what kind of glasses are you going to put on? What kind of presuppositions are you going to have? What is your basic understanding of the nature of reality? That sounds weird, but it's a question we all have to deal with. So what is really real? What is reality? God, origins, and then how do I know? The next component of a worldview is this idea of what is man. I've got 2 subcomponents under this one, his makeup and his destiny. What is man's makeup? What is he made up of? Is man just a physical being? Is he just a spiritual being? And that might just sound like, well, how would anybody think that? Well, there's whole worldviews out there, billions of people that believe that right there. Is man just a physical, just a spiritual being, or some combination of both, which is what we would think? Physical being, but we have a soul also, and how do those work together? So what makes up a man? You probably recognize the name Jeffrey Dahmer, arrested in 1991, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, after he killed and ate 17 people that the authorities know of. But Jeffrey Dahmer viewed people as animals. They're just merely physical beings. And he viewed himself as being the lion of the jungle. If he's going to be the king of the jungle, well, he's going to impose his will on the other animals of the jungle. And that gets into the whole right and wrong thing later too. But I want to point out that his worldview, what makes up a man? Man is just a physical animal. His worldview affected his doings. If lions can go out and eat baby giraffes and baby musk oxes and baby whatever they are, well, why can't I? That's what Jeffrey Dahmer concluded, and he did. What makes up a man? Second subcomponent under that is man's destiny. What happens after man dies? What happens after man dies? Those three roommates had a discussion about that. Does man go to heaven or hell? Does he face some kind of a God out there? Does man just rot in the ground as worm food and become one with the universe again, which is what atheism might say? Or does man have some kind of creative decision and get to go where he creates for himself? It's a weird idea, so foreign of an idea, but it is becoming the predominant idea in our culture also. So man's makeup and man's destiny are the subcomponents under man. So we've got reality, and we've got man, and we've got values. Values is the category that says, okay, how do I determine right from wrong? What determines right from wrong? Is the majority opinion the right opinion? We've made some choices in our country in the last 40, 50 years that have affected millions of people, millions of potential people. We made some choices there, and how is it that we've decided that? Well, majority opinion has decided this. Is that a right thing then? Is majority opinion the right way of deciding things? Can everyone have their own definition of right and wrong, good and bad? Is mankind naturally going to discover what is right and wrong for himself? Is it innate inside of us? If we just look deep inside of us, we'll be able to figure out what right and wrong choices are. Or is right and wrong given to us in the Word of God? Got some pictures up here that evoke a visceral and emotional reaction from us. We've got Adolf Hitler on the left there, Mother Teresa on the right. One of those is good. One of those is bad. You might immediately say, well, obviously the guy on the left, that's bad. That's Adolf Hitler. Oh my goodness. And then you might say the one on the right, Mother Teresa, sacrificed herself for so many people. She's a good person if there's ever a good person. But really this category of values and standards asks, how do you determine that one of those people is good and one of those people is bad? How do you determine that Adolf Hitler is bad? If your worldview, if your set of glasses, your presuppositions decides that not all people are the same, there's certain people, certain strains of genetics that are better than everybody else, the Aryan Superman. And there's certain strains of genetics and DNA that is worse than everybody else, the Jewish vermin. Well, if you think that, then Adolf Hitler might very well be your hero. You might say that he is good. However, if you think that all men are created equal, all men are created in the image of God, all men are worthy of respect and are worthy of sacrifice for, all men are valuable to God, then Mother Teresa, who sacrificed herself for the good of mankind, might very well be your hero. But this category of values and standards asks, by what standard are you going to judge that this choice is a good or bad choice? How do you decide whether abortion is good or bad? How do you decide whether the death penalty is good or bad? You can say, well, the death penalty is wrong or the death penalty is right. But how did you get to that point? And that's a difficult question in Christianity. People are going to be coming down on both sides of that argument. Death penalty is absolutely wrong. Death penalty is right. Well, how do you determine those things? That's a sticky wicket. So what determines right from wrong? I told you about Jeffrey Dahmer before. After killing and eating 17 people, it came out that he believed that he was just the lion of the jungle. And if it's okay for a lion to eat a baby giraffe, a baby musk ox, a baby antelope, why is it not okay for him, as the lion of the jungle of Milwaukee, to go out and eat all sorts of other things out there? If we are just physical beings with no spiritual aspect to us at all, and there's no spiritual God out there at all, if we are just physical beings, why could any random association of physicality of atoms and molecules, why could that be wrong or right? Is it wrong for the moon to circle the earth? No, it's not. Is it wrong for a mama bear to eat her baby cubs? No, it's not wrong. You can't bring that mama bear into trial and put her on trial. Well, if it's not wrong in the natural realm, and all we are is an extension of the natural realm, Jeffrey Dahmer concluded, then why would it be wrong for me to kill and eat other people? He was following through his worldview to its natural end. What determines right from wrong is one of those aspects of worldview. So we've got reality, we've got man, we've got values, standards of right and wrong, and then we've got purpose. What is mankind's purpose? Mankind's purpose has variously been promoted as he who dies with the most toys wins. What you need to do is have the most fun you can while you're here. Get the most stuff, the most boats, the biggest house, the most four-wheel drive vehicles, the most toys out there. And if you have the most, then you've had a good life. That's mankind's purpose. Other people say that mankind's purpose is we're here to glorify God and enjoy him forever, as the Westminster Catechism says. Some would say there's no absolute purpose. Existentialism in the mid-1900s said that. There's no absolute purpose, so you must make a decision of the will, and you must invent your own purpose. Others looking at that same idea, there's no absolute purpose, so everything's meaningless. What is mankind's purpose in general? Not your individual purpose. My individual purpose is to be the best manager at AutoZone I can possibly be. Well, that's not really answering this question. The question is larger, all of mankind. What is mankind's purpose? Now, are we supposed to be glorifying God, which is what the Bible would say, or is there some other reason to this? Reality, man, values, and purpose go together. Those presuppositions form my worldview, my set of glasses, and that causes me to interpret everything differently because this is a blue lens, or this is a red lens, or this is a lens that doesn't see any kind of immaterial in the universe. This is a lens that doesn't see any kind of good in the universe, or whatever it might be. My lenses, my glasses, cause me to interpret life around me. I don't know if you've ever heard of somebody looking at certain cultures that do just very bad things, very different things from my culture. Look at certain cultures that do very bad things. Say, well, how can they do that? How can they commit that kind of a genocide? How can they do that to their own people? How can they hurt each other like that? Well, it really all goes back to this idea of glasses and presuppositions and how I'm viewing reality or man or values or purpose, anything. And those different views have consequences for how you live your life. Jeffrey Dahmer is a great example of that. Anyway, how can you justify killing unborn children? How can you justify capital punishment? How can you justify serving in that war? How can you justify doing these things that you do? Worldview. Worldview. It all goes back to those glasses you're wearing. The beginning of this session, we started talking about what's the basics of evangelism. There's a core gospel message. There's understandability. In our culture, that message, if it's heard at all, it's being misunderstood. It's being misunderstood because people are looking at that message with a different set of glasses, a different set of interpretations, a different set of presuppositions, and that causes that gospel message to be totally misunderstood, totally subverted, and the gospel isn't really communicated at that point. We're missing the gospel. So if we're going to be the best evangelists that we can, if we're going to take God's great commission to us, given at the end of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the beginning of Acts, if we're going to take that seriously, and we're going to do this gospel thing in this world correctly, then we need to understand the world. And part of the world's misunderstanding of the gospel is this right here, this worldview: reality, man, values, and purpose. And we'll start talking about those, some examples of those, in the next session. I'm going to end with this, though. What is a worldview? James Sire said, is a set of presuppositions, assumptions which may be true, partially true, or entirely false, which we hold, consciously or subconsciously, consistently or inconsistently, about the basic makeup of our world. Set of glasses, great illustration for that. Otherwise, I think we're done. We'll see you next time.